Go.
Welcome, distinguished guests, to our first meeting of the Minds. As you know, for our new nation to survive, it is important that we maintain a dialogue amongst ourselves to develop a strong nation in the years to come. So without further ado, let's introduce ourselves to the assembled statesman and woman that's not here today, so that we all know who we will be addressing. I am Honorable Jamie Bellows, and we'll start over here on this side. And this is You are?
Oh, Aaron Burr.
Oh, hi, Aaron.
James Madison.
Thomas Jefferson. I'm John Adams.
Albert Gallatin.
Patrick.
John Adams. No, John Marshall.
Alexander Hamilton.
John Jay.
James Monroe.
George Washington.
Welcome, distinguished guests. There's going to be some rules today. The rules is everyone must give their view today on at least one of the topics. You may respond to a question posed. Try to bring someone else into the conversation, or pass if you choose to respond to a different question. If you do not choose to respond, you will not get any points. Okay? So, let's get started. First question is a general question to anybody that wants to entertain a response. What do you think the power or the role of the government should be? Should the federal government, should the federal or the state governments have more control? Mr. Hamilton.
I believe that the federal government should have more control because the common people are not educated enough to govern themselves, and so they should choose delegates.
Is that it, Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Henry would like to respond as well.
I believe the state government should have more power because they are closer to the people rather than the federal government, which is a central location. They can better apply the people's needs.
Mr. Madison, would you like to speak on this issue?
I believe that the federal government should have more power, because with the rebellion, Washington sent it down with it.
Don't look at me.
God, and
I am God.
because because of that, because of the power he had, he could turn the rebellion down.
It's only blasphemy if you don't believe it. Okay. Mr. Madison, thank you very much for that comment, not compliment, sorry. All right, we'll move on to the second question. There has been debate as to the danger of political factions and or political parties being formed within our newly formed government. What are your views on political parties? Are rival parties healthy for our system? Don't everybody speak at once. So I guess we all believe that we should have political parties and therefore have a government shutdown maybe in the future, maybe a couple hundred years later because we can't get along? Anybody? All right. Well, here's what we'll do. We'll move on since I'm not seeing any takers on that one. Thomas Jefferson. This is not necessarily directed to you, but it kind of is. Where's TJ?
I'm here.
There he is. Hello, Tom. How are you today?
I'm good.
That's too bad. Your election of 1800 is considered the second revolution, which peacefully transferred power from the Federalists to the Democrat-Republicans. Is this proof that political parties can exist?
I believe yes, because there needs to be two different parties, so there's debate about it, who's going to do better, and for Democrats to have, because they support the farmers, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, so you believe that it's healthy to have political parties so that there is debate, not just all one party? Anyone else want to either respond to that or go it on your own, Mr. Henry?
I believe they do help because we need representation of the different opinions in government, and the only way to do that is for separate parties. Otherwise, there would never be an agreement. Because if a single person votes his own opinions, then they would never get anyone. Everybody has different opinions.
Okay. Anybody else? Washington, this is one of these questions kind of directed to you. Where are you? Oh, there you are. But anybody can answer this question. George Washington, you constantly have stated America should stay out of foreign entanglements, yet our economy is directly connected with these countries that we are often at war with. Is it possible to stay out of foreign wars and remain economically stable? Other people that might want to pipe in, John Adams, Albert Gallatin, possibly even Dan Franklin. Mr. Franklin.
I believe that there's
Speak up a little bit.
there's no way to stay out of foreign affairs if we want to keep our economy stable, because we depend on, as a developing nation, we depend on goods that we haven't been able to manufacture yet. But I believe that we can stray away from these entanglements later when we have developed industries.
So right now, so you're saying that right now we might have to have alliances or things like that because of the economy, or?
Yes, because we haven't manufactured all our goods yet.
Because we're a small, emerging economy. We need some help. Okay, anybody else? John J.
I believe we need the recognition for an independent nation, but we need the help from foreign nations for loans and goods for trading partners.
Okay, thank you, Mr. J. I thought I saw a hand somewhere. Mr. Adams.
I agree with Franklin and John, but I disagree. I mean, I don't think the U.S. should be involved in any wars because our army and navy are not powerful enough to fight a major war with another major European power.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Mr. Monroe.
I think that we'll never get out of situations with other countries because as we need more land right now, that that land may be used for like harvesting food and get our economy going. But if we stay at one country, that we'll never get that extra land that we might need later.
If we are trying to expand our country, for instance, west, and other European powers might have control of that land, wouldn't we come into conflict with them if we were needing that land that we so readily want?
Yeah. But eventually we'll somewhat make an agreement with them and we'll get that land.
Okay, does anyone else want to respond to this particular question? Moving on. Okay. Should America rekindle its relationship with Britain, or can we survive without trading with them? Is anyone going to respond to that question? These are serious questions that were going on at the time, between 1789. If you want to speak in their ear, you can, you know. I'm sorry, Mr. Henry.
I believe we do not need Britain. If any manufactured goods that we can't produce ourselves, we can get from other nations like France or maybe Portugal. That's all.
Okay. The question was, should America rekindle its relationship with Great Britain, or can we survive without trading with them? Because remember, what was the system that we all used when we were a colony of Britain? What was it called? Mercantilism, right? And who was our biggest trading partner? Because they had to be, right? Well, now that we're free of them, we still trade with them, do we not?
Yeah.
Right. So you gotta take those things into consideration when you're answering your question. Who is it, Patrick Henry? Okay. So, all right, we're gonna do one more. Oh, go ahead, Ben Franklin.
I believe that we don't need the British, and we can trade with the French because they're very good people.
You're here. What about that XYZ up there?
Exactly.
that was one affair. You can't judge a whole group of people on one thing that three people did.
What did they do?
They tried to bribe us
Why were they trying to bribe us?
so that we can fund their revolution.
Okay. We are going to have one more question based on this. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. John Jay.
Okay. I believe that British tax is wrong and that we don't need the British to trade with the other nations like Spain, France, and Dutch to trade with.
Thank you. All right. We'll do one more on this set, and then we'll switch people. Okay. The Whiskey Rebellion. People believe that the Whiskey Rebellion was started because the same tyrannical taxation that caused the Revolutionary War is being pushed on the backwoods people of the West, which will hurt them economically, was unfair and unjust. By putting down the rebellion with troops, federal troops, isn't this just like what Britain was doing to America before the Revolutionary War, or were the people affected by this tax being unreasonable? John Jay?
People have a natural right to oppose laws that they deem unfair. And they could have done that, and it was to the power of government to stop it, but people should have a say in what's unfair.
Okay, thank you. Don Franklin?
The farmers were being unreasonable. We need funds to keep a nation united, keep it strong, and they were being stubborn. They didn't want to pay because they believed we were hurting their freedom, and we were oppressing them. But we were using these funds to protect them, keep the nation united, and we were actually trying to stimulate their trade.
Okay, I'm going to give an opportunity for Mr. Marshall, Mr. Gallatin, and Aaron Burr to speak before we move on to the next set of questions. I'm going to hold off on you because I'm giving them an opportunity to speak right now before we switch.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Mr. Marshall, do you have anything to say, Mr. Burr, or who was the other person? Oh, Mr. Gallatin. Going once, going twice, or forever hold your peace. You can hold your peace? Okay. Anything? Try. Well, you can do that question, or you can talk on anything that we've talked about already. That question was specifically on the Whiskey Rebellion and whether, did the federal government have the right to bring troops in, or did the people that were rebelling, are you more in favor of them or the federal government coming in and taking care of business? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in the first round, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
So, Mr. Franklin, how will these reasonable farmers to oppose this unreasonable tax placed on them by a large federal government? They raise this land, and it's theirs, and yet somebody sitting on a hill is controlling their input and output of money.
You could
Tell us.
petition. We do not need violence to react.
You came to us with free violence.
We had to put it down so it maintained the peace. People were getting hurt. These farmers
Isn't that
were
the state
being
government's job?
because the state government was not strong enough.
I disagree. They are closer to the people. They know the better that the people's
If
matter.
they were closer to the people, why didn't they put it down earlier?
Because you didn't give them enough power to.
All right, well, that was excellent. All right, we're going to then, people from the back rows, leave your